Hello?
Hey,
Hey there. Yeah, so I think I can prove you wrong. The evidence for God is going to be the complex specialized information, the AUGTC nucleotides that tell us how to self-replicate, metabolize, they create enzymes that perform specific functions. And information like this has only been observed coming from a mind. And when we say information, we're not being poetic, we're not being metaphorical. It's a literal information storage and transfer system inside the cell. And you're only an atheist because you think that life began on its own, or you think that's a
no,
possibility, or you've been misinformed by that about that.
no. So your view on life, my view on life is irrelevant to my lack of belief in God. But more importantly, sure, you can deem DNA as an informational system, but that could be a natural system. Information is natural. Hold on. The point is that life can be a natural process, even though it's complex. And so you never have to invoke God for abiogenesis or for how life operates. Even if
Hold
we
on
don't know
before
how
you.
life operates, it does not grant us the belief in God.
So I wanted. Okay. Do you know what a nucleotide is?
Yeah, it's a type of molecule
So
that is important
it's a
for human.
molecule. So what does a nucleotide do? What is a nucleotide? It's a
It
molecule
makes
without
up
it.
base pairs.
Okay, cool. Just trying to get a sort of where you're coming from, but if you look up the origin of information problem, by the way, that stumps most people. They don't have a clue. So if you look up the origin of information problem, no, it's never been observed coming from nature. That's misinformation that you just spread.
But that doesn't. Just because we have first of all, when you say information, all you really mean to say is a system. That's all it is.
No,
There are
no,
natural
hold on,
systems.
hold on, no. It's not
Hold on.
being poetic
Hold
when
on.
you
Just
say
let me explain. This is important. The weather system is full of information, right? The
That's not
rainfall, the
complex.
precipitation, wind patterns, pressures.
Nice
This is
try to
all.
stop
Hold on.
what we mean by
This is
complex.
all information. However, it's all natural. Rain is natural, precipitation is natural, pressure is natural. Nobody argues against that. And so the same, I think, is happening with DNA. It's natural. It's just a bit complex for us to understand intuitively. And so we go, it must be God. But I think that's the mistake you're making. And by the way, you're arguing from ignorance. Oh, we've never seen it happen naturally, therefore it's God. That's a fallacy. And so I think it's better to remain agnostic and say, well, maybe there is, maybe there isn't somebody behind life, but it doesn't need to be God.
Okay, can I respond? So again, when we're talking about the specific biological information that's being generated in the cell, we're not talking about, oh, look, the moon goes around the sun. That's information. That's just a philosophical sophistry that your people have come up with, the atheist. You don't like the implications of the information, but it's not poetic, it's not metaphorical, and it's not the same kind of information as, oh, look, like I said, the sun going around the moon going around the earth or whatever. Look, that's information. That's not what we mean by complex
And
specialized
what do you mean
information.
by information? What do you think
And this
information
isn't
is?
debated, by the way.
What
Anybody
do
can
you think
go in
information
chat
is?
right now and look up the origin of information
What do
problem
you think
in
information is, sir?
abiogenesis
What do you think
and
information
realize
is?
that the host doesn't have the foggiest idea what he's talking about. So
What
I'm
do you
going to
think
leave you with that.
information is? Oh, okay. He left. Look, there's no reason to get so angry, guys. We're trying to have a fruitful discussion here, right?
Hey, bro, how are you?
Hey,
What are your thoughts on Aquinas' law of motion? Have you read into that?
yeah, Aquinas' 5 laws are based on outdated information. He took his information from Aristotle, so he took an Aristotelian metaphysical view, which we know because of relativity in modern science is completely false. In fact, motion isn't a real thing. Motion doesn't really exist. Motion is relative. And so
Well,
we
do you
don't
know
need a
how
first
motion is
mover.
operantly defined in
We
his
don't
law?
need a first mover as if there's a domino configuration of the universal of things in the universe, in which you need a first domino mover. That doesn't make any sense according to relativity.
So, well, I don't want the term motion to be misconstrued, because it often is. Motion, as described by Aquinas, is change. You acknowledge that, correct?
Whatever, yeah. Change is
Awesome,
not
great.
real. I don't think change is a real thing. I think it's
So,
purely
wood
perceptual.
becoming
It's not a real thing.
fire or ice melting isn't change? What would that be?
It's change, but it's perceptual. It's not a real thing. When I say real, I don't mean it doesn't exist. I'm saying it doesn't have ontology beyond things we observe,
So you
beyond
don't.
things that we
So
perceive.
so there's no objective reality. It's all based on perception.
What? No, that's not what I said at all. There's no objective motion.
Okay.
Motion is not absolute. Motion is relative. That's what I'm saying.
So because it's relative, you would say, therefore, the domino insinuation really is kind of illogical?
Yeah, because we can take an internalist view of time or motion in which there is a static block, a universal block in which it has 4 dimensions, in which it's just there. It's just all there. All of the future is there. All of our past is there. All the present. It's just one block in which nothing changes inside with any absolute sense. And so nothing's really moving.
No, I completely agree. I do think it's completely objective, at least in the sense that things really do change. I think physics completely describes motion, at least to a modern sense, very well. So that's not at all what I would disagree with. But I think what you're implying really is that because motion is explained internally by physics or even space-time, Aquinas's argument is, again, outdated and unnecessary. But what has to be understood is that Aquinas is actually not doing physics. That's why it's
that's
coined metaphysics, right?
Aquinas did not know what physics he did. He had a very poor understanding of physics, and that's the problem.
Well, I agree. That's why his argument wasn't physical; it was metaphysical, right?
Well,
and I think that distinction is very important.
Well, your physics is going to inform your metaphysics, and so if you have a poor physical grasp of the universe, you're going to have a poor metaphysics.
Sorry, my mic would not unmute. There we go. Sorry, I try and mute my mic when you're speaking. I think the distinction is still important. I agree. I think your knowledge is definitely going to help you out draw conclusions, especially when you're attempting to be a theologian. But the issue is physics and metaphysics has different questions and different criteria. You know, physics is how objects move, how time behaves, how forces interact, whereas metaphysics is about the why. Right. So even if motion is fully described internally, for example, the question still remains, why is there a reality that can have motion at all? And this is where it gets super philosophical. Right. I don't think the internalist view of time defeats Aquinas. I think even if you were to believe time is relational or internal, whether motion is frame dependent, if space-time is self-contained, it only is describing the structure within reality. But it's still not answering why there is a structured reality, and that's what Aquinas argues.
Asking why might not be a valid question. Why does God exist? Why does that happen? Why does God operate the way God does? These are all unanswerable questions. They might be invalid. And so asking why doesn't matter here. I'm asking you, what is your argument for God existing?
Just overall, because I think the reason God exists is because the question why is valid. And I'll delve into that absolutely. Why is not invalid, and it depends on the level of explanation. There's different kinds of why questions. You have your scientific why.
Okay.
Or it's like,
I understand this, but I'm asking you, what's the reason you think God exists rather than not exists?
Sure, and that's what I'm getting to. Yeah, I'm not trying to avoid the question at all. I think the reason God exists is because of the answer to why metaphysically. And that would have to mean the question why is valid, which is why I'm answering that now. You know, if why was invalid, then everything else would collapse, right?
Okay, great. So then why does God exist? What explains God's existence?
Again, that's what I'm delving into. This is a developing point. So if why,
If you can't answer why God exists, then why do we need an answer as to why the universe exists?
because you just said why is an invalid question, and now you're asking me a why question.
No, I'm using your own logic. I'm showing you if everything needs a why, well then why does God exist? And if you can't answer that, why do we need an answer to why the universe exists the way it does?
So you just want an answer to why God exists. That's it.
Both of these can be necessary brute facts. The universe or God could be both necessary, possibly necessary. And so I don't think your argument really holds very well.
Well, the question is applying to the wrong category, right? You're asking why does God exist? Whereas I'm a Catholic, so when I say our, I mean Catholic. Catholic metaphysics responds with that question is assuming God is a contingent being, a thing that could have failed to exist. That's why you're asking why. But in classical theism, God is a non-contingent being inside reality, and God is necessary in and of itself. So the question shifts from why to what.
Great. So we can say the universe is necessary. There we go.
So that's your baseline belief.
I can make the same move you're making.
So you're just saying the universe is contingent upon itself. Is that I don't want to misconstrue the argument.
You can say the universe is necessary. And I'm making the same exact move you're making for theism. I'm just making it for atheism.
Okay, no, I'm definitely picking up on what you're saying. So I want to ask you this question, right? Do you mean the universe exists by necessity in all possible worlds, or just that we don't currently know a cause for it?
It could not have failed to exist. That's what makes it necessary.
So that's a metaphysical claim.
Correct.
Okay, awesome, great. I wanted to outline that so I don't talk about the wrong thing, right? So a necessary universe would in this case have to mean it could not have failed to exist. It has no alternative possibility, and its laws, its constants, and structure is completely unavoidable, right? That's a very strong claim. And the issue is physics doesn't show it. I don't believe it does. My critique is this.
Show God? Physics doesn't show God.
My critique is this, point? Right?
We're not making a physical argument. You just said we're making a metaphysical one, and so physics is.
I know, and I wasn't using that to critique your argument. I was just acknowledging that it's a parallel in the same way. Yeah, I wasn't using that as a refutation. So my critique to this is why this universe with these specific laws and constants rather than another or nothing. If the universe was necessary in and of itself, then its structure would be logically necessary and not contingent or could have been otherwise. Whereas physics shows, and this is where it gets physical for a moment, is that constants appear finely tuned. I'm not going to do the finely tuned argument. I think it's kind of ignorant. But to a degree, it's finely tuned. Laws are incredibly descriptive and they're not self-explaining. And the universe at some point, and there is no argument against this, had a beginning. So the way I see it with this being said is the universe is looking contingent, but it's not necessary, which is what it would have to be if it were upon itself. So the main philosophical problem
you raised some good points. So let me respond here. You made some good
points. I've been talking too much.
So this all depends on what you mean by the universe. If you mean by the universe our local space-time we inhabit, well then yes, there are laws in which we operate through. But when I say the universe, I mean the totality of all things. So I mean all universes, perhaps a multiverse. And so to answer your question, there could be different bubble universes with different laws. All of this would be umbrellaed by a Hamiltonian, right? Some kind of quantum state that encompasses all possible universes physically. And so that is going to be the necessary entity. Okay, not our local space-time, but the one quantum state that's eternal and unchanging. That's going to be the necessary entity.
I like that a lot. It's very cosmological, you know. I like the discussion. I think it's great. So I want to ask you a question, kind of a clarifying question. When you say necessary, in reference to the quantum law, do you mean it could not possibly fail to exist in any logical possible reality, or just that it is the most fundamental physical level that we could even theorize?
We can say it's necessary. that it could not have failed to exist. We can say that.
So it could not possibly fail to exist. Okay, good.
Right.
Just wanted to get that clarified just so I can understand. My key problem with this is you're drawing a link with the universe to a multiverse, which is then backed by a quantum state, and that quantum state is therefore necessary. But what's only being changed in the argument is the level of description, not the explanatory question. What's being assumed still is that there is a thing, it's fundamental, and therefore it's fundamental, it explains itself. But that's not really an argument for necessity. That's just pushing the question back a level.
But how is this any different than theism? What theism is doing? You're saying God is a thing, it's necessary, just as I am. What's the difference?
So you're saying it's the same issue, is what you're saying?
Yeah, your theory has the same issue. If you think it's an issue, I don't think it's an issue. I think that in every logical system, we're going to have to make some. There are going to have to be some axioms. There are going to have to be some presuppositions in every logical system we make in order for it to function correctly. And so, I don't think there's anything wrong with presupposing a certain axioms about the reality.
Oh, so you're just saying, it's not necessarily a bad argument, but the same has to be said for a universe supporting itself, is what you're essentially saying?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with making some presuppositions about reality, like we exist.
Okay, no, I definitely see the line you're drawing.
Presuppositions.
I see the line you're drawing. You're saying both are asserted as necessary.
Correct.
But I want to make it clear, and even whether or not this changes your mind, it's just kind of just a clarification of what a theist or a Catholic would believe, is our argument is not God is necessary because we label him as such. It's that anything composed of parts, laws, or structure is completely contingent. Therefore, it cannot be necessary in the strict metaphysical sense. So the symmetry breaks a little bit, because if you look at the multiversal argument, right, that you just brought up, you have a structured system that requires explanation. Whereas God, and even just in a theist term and not even necessarily Christian, it's non-composite, right? God is non-structured and necessary existence in and of himself, right? So
but you think God is reality?
Like we live within God? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I think God is temporal. That's a very great question. I don't want to give you a wrong answer, so I honestly, I'm just going to tell you I don't know.
Within God?
I'm sorry?
Do we exist within God?
I don't think so, no. I'm not very educated on that question.
So we are separate existences from God?
No, I think God operates on a plane of reality distinct from ours, but I think because of his omnipresence and temporal nature that he is still within the universe. I think he's conglomerately within all
the
realities.
Universe. He's within the universe, so there's a bigger reality beyond God?
I think the only larger reality outside of our own would be God in and of himself. But I don't believe
you said that God is within the universe, so that means it implies that there's something beyond God.
No, there's nothing. I believe the universe is a creation of God.
So there's nothing beyond God.
No, there's nothing beyond God. He is.
So that means we exist within God.
No, we can't be a creation of God.
That exists within God, right? Because God is the totality of everything. We exist within God. We're parts of God.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying now. No, I think that's I honestly, I couldn't tell you. I think that's a great question. I could not tell you the answer to that.
Fair enough.
It's a great question. Do we exist? I'm going to research. That's good. I like that way of thought there. But yeah, man, it was great talking to you. I think we actually were able to learn. Thank God, dude. I couldn't tell you how many times you go into conversations like this and it's just so brain dead. You have no idea, bro. I'm sure you do know. I'm sure you've seen it. Oh man, it gets bad.
Yeah.
All right, bro. You have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Great conversation. All right. Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Great.
Yeah,
What do you got for us today?
I don't think God is imaginary. I think there's evidence that points to his existence, or at least makes his existence less disbelievable.
Okay. What is it? What's the evidence for God?
Yeah, I think the evidence for God is the discoverability of the universe.
The
And by
discoverability. So the fact that we can discover things is evidence that God's real.
well, what I mean by discoverability is that we can infer truths about the universe's past as rational agents.
Okay, so the fact that we can make inferences means God exists.
I think that makes I think that sort of evidence makes the universe. I think that makes the God hypothesis less disbelievable. Yes.
Versus atheism. Why would that piece of evidence atheism over atheism?
Sure, because I think that the universe is a reflection of a rational mind.
Well, but you're just asserting that, right? You're just asserting that the universe is from a rational mind. I'm asking for reasons to think that's true.
Sure, like I said, it would be more expected, given that the universe is a reflection of a rational mind, that what we would see is that the universe can be discoverable. And all I mean by that is we can infer truths about its past.
This seems question begging, right? You're saying, well, the reason God exists is because it's discoverable, and we live within a rational mind, and the evidence of that is that we live in a rational mind. It seems like it's question begging. I don't know.
No, because I'm not saying because we live in a rational mind, that's the evidence. I'm saying it would be more expected that if we do live in a rational mind, that what we would see is the discoverability of the universe.
But why would that be more expected when discoverability can be explained just by without a rational mind existing beyond our own, and all the things we're discovering and inferring are happening within our own minds? Why do we need an external mind?
Well, presumably, if that were to be the case, then they're just positing that the universe wouldn't be discoverable outside of us. But that's clearly false. Presumably, that would be
it wouldn't be discoverable beyond minds. Minds are obviously the tools to be able to discover things. But the point is that I'm not saying human beings, any kind of mind, right? Even animals can discover things. I'm saying that the point is that we don't need a mind beyond our minds.
Well, yeah, that's just not true, because this universe could have been far less discoverable. It could have been far more chaotic and been far more opaque.
Sure, but how does that warrant or give credence towards theism or God? How does that give credence towards God?
Well, it gives credence towards God in the sense that it allows the way the constants is formed, right? It seems that it is a projection of something that is rational. And what we see amongst things, and all I mean by rational is just the kind of intellect that is displayed by reasoners like you and I, but at a more stronger level.
I think you're asserting logical realism. I think what you're doing here is you're just presupposing logical realism is true. Because I can take a logical anti-realist approach and recognize that logic and rationality, they're not real things, right? That's just part of how the brain operates.
They're not real things. I mean,
Right,
do you take that view?
Ontology beyond the brain.
So, I mean, do you think that is true?
Yes,
even if that's true, right?
It's true, and I think it's a perfectly valid view, and that's
well,
why
then
many
you're just
philosophers
saying
have that view.
Well, I mean, you're not saying anything that contradicts my point, because I don't think rationality exists outside of a mind either. All I'm saying, what we would expect, given that we exist within a mind, is the reflection of its structure. If you just think, well, logic and rationality doesn't exist out of minds, that doesn't matter.
What about the structure of the universe implies that there's a mind behind it?
I said, what about it?
Yeah, what about the structure implies there must be a mind behind that?
Yeah, the ability that we can infer truths, truth tracking cognition, life permitting conditions, so
But
on and
all
so
that can be
forth.
explained naturally, right? We wouldn't explain why there's
What's the explanation naturally that that the universe is discoverable?
The brain. We have brains that operate.
So if no humans were here, this universe wouldn't be discoverable.
If no humans existed, there wouldn't be logic. There wouldn't
That's
be
not answering the
rationality.
question.
There wouldn't
Would
be
this universe be discoverable
rationality.
if humans? Would this universe be discoverable if humans were not here?
The universe would be discoverable by other minds. If there couldn't be minds in the universe, yeah, the universe would not be discoverable because you need a mind to do that.
That's clearly absurd. The universe would be discoverable even if there weren't any minds, because what comes first? Well, yeah, because what came first is the universe's existence, right? Presumably the things that you see have already been here. It's not like these things are, unless you're some sort of indirect realist and you don't think.
The prerequisite to discovering the universe is a mind. Would you agree?
A necessary prerequisite to discover the universe is a mind?
Yeah.
I would say the necessary precondition to discover the universe is to have a rational mind. Yes. Not just any mind.
There you go. So you agree, we both agree that you need a mind to discover the universe.
Not just any mind, a rational mind.
Okay. A rational mind. You need a rational mind to discover things rational about the universe. And so if there were no rational minds, the universe would not be discovered or discoverable.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
but that doesn't do anything.
So we both agree.
That doesn't do anything to the view.
You just contradicted yourself before you
What's
said.
What's the contradiction?
You just said before it could only be discoverable with even if there were no minds. And now you're saying, okay, if there were no minds, it wouldn't be discoverable.
Well, that's not what I'm saying.
Then what?
Because the way you're talking about mind is that of outside of it just being rational. I agree that, obviously, in order for it, there has to be some sort of mind to at least perceive the constants of the universe. But we're talking about a rational mind here.
Yeah. Another thing about the constants, I don't think constants are real either. I think those are just descriptors. When we say the laws of physics, they don't really exist. The universe doesn't follow laws. It doesn't follow logical laws. The universe does not follow physical laws.
The universe doesn't follow any laws?
No, because you're presupposing that they're prescriptive.
So wait, do you think the laws we have is false?
Let me explain.
Sure.
So you're taking a logical realist approach here. You're presupposing that the laws of the universe are prescriptive, not descriptive. And I take a logical anti-realist approach, which means that they are descriptive, and so they don't really exist. They don't have real ontology in the external world.
We can say that they don't have.
My ultimate point is that all of this that you're attempting to say only theism can explain is actually explainable by naturalism, atheistic naturalism. Law, like Monkey Boy is saying, law realism, law anti-realism.
No, that's a whole different view, because law realism would also encompass nomic laws, not just logical laws. Which, do you deny that the nomic law? I don't agree that these laws, maybe it does presuppose some sort of law realism, but the evidence for this,
anti-realist, I don't think laws are real. I don't think they have real ontology.
Well, that's fine. I can take it that, these laws are just simply conventions and they don't have some sort of further ontology. But the evidence seems to be that these things are consistent in explaining the given phenomena of what occurs in the universe. For example, one of the laws of the universe, one of the nomic laws is that, let's just take the second law of thermodynamics, or we can take the law of, let's take the law of, I think it's one of the laws of aerodynamics, which is that, nothing flies unaided. It seems that, given our inductive observations, anything that flies is doing so by some sort of aid. And it seems consistent by that.
Yeah, absolutely. They're consistent as we observe them. And I agree, we can contrive laws of nature. Absolutely.
Okay.
But again, that doesn't have to do anything with the fact that I'm a law anti-realist.
I'm saying that it doesn't matter whether or not you take a law realist or anti-realist view. Nothing what I'm saying presupposes like the ontology
Okay.
of
Oh,
laws.
so then you agree that all the laws can be fully grounded in the human mind.
They can be fully grounded in the human. I don't even know what that means.
Fully explained by the human mind.
I don't even know what that means. I think if you're saying that the laws
Okay.
can be fully explained by some rational mind, then
Yes.
yes. But
There you go.
then all you're really saying,
Could that rational mind be the human mind?
can it be? I mean, it can be a finite example of a human mind. Sure,
Okay,
it can be a
great.
finite example.
So all the laws of nature can be explained by the human mind. There you go. We
Yeah,
don't
a
need
kind
God.
of
We don't need God.
rational mind.
We don't
But
need
you're just
theism.
saying that the laws can be explained by a kind of rational mind. Right? What I'm positing is that the entity in question is also a rational mind, just not a finite emergence.
The point remains that
No,
all the
because you
things you're
just agreed
attempting
the
to say
laws can be
only
explained
theism,
by a kind of rational mind.
your attempt at monopolizing the laws of nature in favor of purely theism fails, because I can explain the laws of nature through naturalism, human minds.
Wait, like I said again, okay? Let's just go question by question. Do you take human minds to be rational?
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying that rational minds can explain. I mean, there might be some equivocation on that, but you're saying that rational minds can explain the way the constants and the laws that we see of this universe, right? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
The
Okay,
rational
great.
mind could be the source of these laws.
Okay, so if the source of these laws could be that of a rational mind, what's the issue of me positing that it would be expected of the laws that we see, if it was the source of a greater rational mind?
Because it suffers some theoretical virtues. It's not as
Which is
theoretical. It's not parsimonious. It is
what's
far
not
more.
parsimonious about it?
Hold on. I'm not saying there's a contradiction in your view. No, absolutely. There's no logical contradiction in the view that there's a rational mind behind ours. The problem is that it's not as parsimonious. It's far more parsimonious to just say that, yeah, human mind grounds these things. We don't need to appeal to some kind of external mind for which we have no evidence for. And so,
What do you mean by external mind?
I would reject that.
What do you mean by external mind?
Well, you're saying, don't you think God's mind is external to ours?
Well, yes, but I think God's mind.
That's what I'm saying.
I take God's mind to just simply ground the universe. So I don't take like a classical theist view. I think God is just the ground of all things.
Okay, and I can say nature is the ground of all things as a quantum state, right? And there's no explanatory advantage that you have.
No,
over,
you can say nature is
naturalism.
the ground of all things because you just said the explanation of nature would be that of a rational mind. The source of the explanation for nature is that of a rational mind.
No, I'm not saying the explanation for nature. I'm saying the laws of nature, the descriptions of nature are coming. The source of that is human mind. I'm not saying nature itself. There's a difference between the external world and the internal world. I clearly make that distinction. But I'm saying the true ontology of the external world is unknown to us.
Okay.
We have laws of nature to describe it, but that's just our petty approach at doing this.
Do you think nature would emerge without? Do you think nature would emerge without these laws?
I don't know if nature is emergent. I think nature would be fundamentally there eternally.
You can have finite emergence amongst an eternal.
Yeah, you can
amongst
have
eternality.
Yes, you can have pockets of emergence, sure, within this total universe, sure. But the point is that nature, when I say nature, I'm talking about the totality of all things.
What do you mean by the totality of all things?
The set of all things that exist. That's nature.
So do you include? So you're talking about possible worlds?
Sure.
That's just very. So are you some sort of like modal realist or something? Because if that's true, then that's not parsimonious.
I don't have to be a modal realist, but you can take that approach. A lot of people do. I'm just agnostic towards that. But I would say
Okay.
that the point is that my view holds whether or not you're a modal realist, right? You can say that there are no possible worlds, and that's just one necessary universe.
Okay. And I'm just saying that given the structure of these universes, I mean, even if you take a modal realist or some sort of necessitarianism view, it would still follow that presumably these universes follow some sort of laws. And if that's true, then
No, I
these
reject
universes,
that. I reject that the universe follows laws. I reject that.
or maybe, okay, say, let's just remove the follows language. There's laws that can be explained by that of a rational mind. Is that better for you?
No, I would say that the brain is just one of the faculties by which we use to describe what we observe in nature. And so laws don't exist beyond our minds, in my view.
Well, I'm just saying that we already clarified what we mean by that is that of like rational minds, because you don't think like a pig can infer like the truths of this universe, do you? Or an ant?
Well, we definitely know that animals can make inferences. Crows can do mathematics.
But that's not what I'm
We know
asking
that
you.
some animals are quite intelligent.
But
But
that's
I
not
don't
what
know
I'm
what your
asking
point
you.
is.
Like, that's not what I'm asking you. Like, that you don't think like an ant can infer the truths of our universe, right?
I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. What's your point?
I think it's most likely the case that they can't, because
Okay, well, what's your point?
yeah,
What's your point,
the point is
though?
that it alludes to that of like there might be what might be like necessary towards inferring the truths of these universes is having some sort of rational mind or being a reasoner like you and
Yeah,
I.
having a rational mind is, I would say, a necessary prerequisite to doing that. Sure, maybe ants
Okay.
can or cannot do it, but all I know is that you don't need God to explain the universal laws, because I don't think they really exist. I think that all
Whether
that exists are just our minds trying to understand the external world.
what all I'm saying is that given these phenomena that we see, and then these laws that we created to understand this phenomena, these things that seems to be consistent. I'm just saying that what we're pointing to, or which may not have any further ontology. Sure, what we're pointing to, given that its consistency, would be more expected if the universe was some sort of projection of a rational mind. Since what we see amongst rational minds is that the creation of these things that follows some sort of consistency.
Yeah, I would just say it's just as expected under naturalism to have a universe that appears to conform to our rational mind's way of working. In fact, it would actually give credence more towards naturalism, in my view, because our brains evolved to try to attempt to understand the world around us. And so evolution would
Wait,
explain
evolution
exactly
wouldn't.
why we look at the world and are good at recognizing patterns and good at recognizing how things operate. I think that explains it just fine under naturalism. It's not more expected under theism.
Wait, evolution wouldn't be able to explain the discoverability of the universe. Presumably,
Why not?
yeah, because like I told you earlier, this universe could have been far less discoverable. It could have been far more chaotic.
That doesn't fucking matter, right? The
Wait,
point
it
is
does
that
matter.
evolution explains why we have the ability to discover the universe. Whether or not the universe would be different is irrelevant.
No, it doesn't explain why. It explains what. It explains what gives you entities like you and I the ability to discover truths, which is that of a brain. But that's not answering the why question. That's a separate question. It's asking,
when you say
why do you have
how
the
is it
brain?
distinct?
Why do you
How
have
is
the mind you
asking
have
why?
to infer the truths?
How is asking why distinct from asking how in this context?
Well, because why is asking more of a further question, right? Because like,
What is the question? That's why is
the
trying
further
to reach for that how can't or doesn't.
that how can't. The question is not a how; it's a matter of why.
You're making a distinction between why questions and how questions. I'm asking you in this
No,
context, what's
I'm
the
making a
difference?
distinction. I'm making a distinction between why questions and what questions. What is more of a causal mechanism or causal explanation? right? So the causal explanation for the causal explanation for what allows you to infer truths is, yeah, we can just say evolution, you having a brain, so on and so forth, you having a rational consciousness. That's fine. But the question now is, okay, why do you have that? Why is evolution in place?
Why does God have a mind?
Why does God have a mind?
Yeah, we can ask that. Why does God have a rational mind?
It's just by definition.
Okay, well then I can say that by definition, by necessity, we have rational minds.
By definition of what? Wait. That doesn't.
I
Wait.
can
By
make
definition
the
of
same
what?
chess move you're making in this game of chess.
By definition. Wait. By definition of what? Because I said by definition of
by
God.
necessity,
God is a rational mind.
So as a necessitarian, I can say by necessity, we have rational minds.
Oh, so you're a necessitarian?
I could take that view. Yes.
Wait. What kind of necessitarian are you?
A logical necessitarian. I don't know what you
No,
mean.
that's no. You couldn't be a logical necessitarian because now you can't use the universe as evidence. You couldn't use naturalism as evidence because it's all things considered necessary.
Yeah, I could say the universe is necessary, just like you say God is necessary.
Wait, I'm just saying that God is metaphysically necessary. It's not logically
I could say
necessary.
the universe is metaphysically necessary too.
No, because you're saying it's logically necessary. Do you understand that's a different claim?
Okay, when I say necessitarian, I'm just saying in the modal sense.
That didn't clarify. There's different modalities. There's the logical modality.
Right,
There's
so
the metaphysical modality.
Right.
I asked you earlier, what kind of necessitarian are you? You said logical, which means under the logical modality, you think the universe could not have been otherwise. But that just means all things. That just means all things considered. That just means all things considered, the universe could not have been in any other way, logically speaking. But then you can't use it as evidence. You can't use the universe as evidence.
Why couldn't I use it as evidence?
Yeah, because that. Hold on a second. I'm getting a phone call.
Look, you're doing the same thing. You're saying God is necessary, right? God could not
no,
have
I'm
been
saying
any
God
other
is
way.
necessary
God could
metaphysically
not have been
speaking.
any other way, but that's also your explanatory, your explanant.
No, I'm saying metaphysically speaking. It's logically possible that God just doesn't exist. That's not anything crazy. Like I think a lot of Christians would accept that. Yeah, it might be logically possible.
Okay, that's a nice concession.
It's logically possible God doesn't exist.
That's a really nice concession.
It's I mean, sure, I guess, but I'm making more of a stronger claim that God exists metaphysically speaking. And all that means is that like given to the
the
I know you're
not necessarily a classical theist, and that's fine. But
okay,
I'm just simply saying that I could be a logical necessitarian about the universe, and I can still say that necessarily we have rational minds. I don't see the problem with that. I don't see what your point is.
No, because the problem would simply be is that, look, if you're saying it could not have been otherwise, what would follow is that in the other modalities, right? Let's just say metaphysical, nomic, whatever, it would have to be logically, it would have to be the case. Because by pointing to what it could have been otherwise would invoke a contradiction. It would mean that if you say, well, this universe could have been, slightly warmer by like 2 degrees. Well, that would be a contradiction under your view because it's logically impossible.
Now I get it. Oh, okay. Now I get it. Yeah. No, well, then I can just say, well, no, the universe could not have been different. And that's it, right? The example you raised before about the universe being different, we can just say, no, it could not have, right?
I mean, but I don't see any motivation to think that the universe could not have been different, logically speaking.
Okay, is this a refutation? Like, this doesn't point to a contradiction in my view. It doesn't at all invalidate my view.
Well, no, I'm just saying that if it is the case that it's logically necessary, then I'm just saying that all you're saying is that, it could not have been otherwise. And everything that exists necessarily, logically speaking.
Okay.
Right. But then the problem is that you couldn't use that as evidence, because now because its existence entails its truth. Literally. The universe's existence entails its truth because it literally could not have been otherwise. The whole point of these hypotheses, right, that we posit, the whole point of the hypothesis that we posit is that, like, we assess whether or not their probability raising, there's evidence that raises its probability, or that of, it makes it less disbelievable given some sort of ranking function. But the problem is that the evidence that you point to guarantees the truth of the hypothesis because its existence entails the truth. So any evidence you point to would literally give a 1 towards your hypothesis. That's why it can't be used as evidence.
The evidence for what?
For naturalism.
So because I'm a necessitarian, I can't say I can't say I'm a naturalist?
No, what? I'm saying that logically, logical necessitarians can't point to things in the universe as evidence for the naturalist hypothesis.
Why
because
not?
Because I just told you the existence of the things under naturalism exists necessarily. So any evidence that you point to would raise the probability of your hypothesis to a 1.
I don't see how that follows.
It guarantees the truth because the evidence that you point to could not have been otherwise.
I don't see how that follows.
We can
still make assessments about the universe, even though things are logically necessary. Everything is logically necessary. I don't see why you couldn't yield evidence from the universe that's necessary.
Okay, all I'm telling you is that the evidence that you point to within the naturalistic hypothesis, it exists necessarily. Do you know what that means? It means that the evidences, right, could not have been otherwise. It literally could not have been otherwise. So let's just take, for example...
I don't see how it follows that therefore I cannot have attained evidence of naturalism.
Okay, so wait, let's just give an example. Wait, I just can give you an example, right?
Structured argument?
Wait, I just can give you an example, right? Let's just say that me and you are in the rainforest, right? And you see a big footprint. Now you're going to say that, the big footprint is going to be evidence of, like, some sort of, like, large animal, right? Now, the problem with this is that, the big footprint existing, it could not have been otherwise. So that means yes, that's what it means to be a logical necessitarian. This is the point what I'm trying to make. Since it could not have been otherwise, then it necessarily guarantees the truth of your hypothesis.
No. Just because it's logically necessary doesn't mean that it couldn't be evidence of the hypothesis that there's a big animal there. I don't see how that follows at all, that it's therefore not evidence.
No, I just told you because it guarantees. Levels, right? I just told you it guarantees the hypothesis being true.
When I make an empirical inference, I'm not at all talking about the logical necessity of the universe. We're just talking at a different level about the footprint, the physical thing, the facts we observe. So I think that's a bit confused on your part.
If you're just the thing is that when I say that, well, if you're just saying we're talking at a different level, then you're just not a logical necessitarian then.
Yeah?
You're just not a logical necessitarian.
Why not? I don't understand. I don't think you're making.
No, I kind of just like explained this like multiple times. Like if you were a metaphysical necessitarian about the universe, that would be fine, because I'm also a metaphysical necessitarian. But if you're a logical necessitarian, everything that exists in this world, everything that you see exists. It could not have been otherwise, logically speaking. You existing right now, you blinking.
I don't see how that's a problem. I don't see how that's a problem.
Because that would mean the phenomena that you point to explain your hypothesis exists necessarily. And if that's true, it raises the probability of your hypothesis to be 1.
No, we're not. It would be question begging if it was the case that I was saying the necessity of things is evidence of necessity. But that's not what I'm saying. That's not the argument, right? That's a straw man.
How is that a straw man when you say everything exists necessarily speaking?
Because that's just one of the views I have. I'm not saying the evidence of that is that we have rational minds. I'm not saying we have rational minds, therefore the universe is logically necessary. That's not my argument.
Okay, so what's the explanation for it?
Explanation for what?
The logical necessity.
That's just one of my views. That's
Yeah,
just
I understand that, but we're asking, the reasons for that, given that it's logically necessary.
because I don't have a reason to think otherwise. I don't have a reason to think that there's a different kind of sense to the universe. I don't know.
You have no reason to think.
I don't see good reasons to think that the universe isn't necessary.
Logically speaking,
Yeah.
I think, well, the reason why is because when we talk about contingencies, or when we talk about when we, in terms of like everyday conversation, it seems that we talk in ways in which the world could have been, in the ways the world should have been, but we're not talking about in the way the world currently is. But if that's true, then we can't be saying that, like, obviously what we're talking about is confused, right? Because the way the world should have been and the way the world could have been, both seem to say that we're not looking at the way the world is, which is necessary.
I think you're confusing the colloquial sense of the word could have been this way.
No.
I think underlying all that language could be just the fact that, yeah, you are a logical necessitarian, but you colloquially say certain things like it could have been this way when we don't really mean them that way. Look, I'm going to move on, but appreciate you being here. I'm going to move on to the next guest. But I appreciate you being up here. I think we had a good conversation. I just want a new guest in here.
Yo.
Hey, how are you?
No, good. How about you?
Good.
Can I just get a breakdown of the question? Like, I'm not saying I don't understand it, but like what do you mean God is imaginary? Like, what is your standpoint? Like, what do you have to say about
I don't think God's real. I think it's just
okay. So you don't believe in God, right? So that makes you an atheist, or
yeah.
All right. So what do you believe about the universe?
That it exists.
That it has always existed.
Maybe, yeah.
So wouldn't that means the universe would be infinite then, right?
Sure, very well could be infinite.
So, okay. So what trips me out about that is that, so you're saying the universe is infinite and it creates things within itself, right? Not necessarily like a mind, right? But
okay. Do you have evidence that God exists?
No, I don't know if God exists or not. I believe that God exists. I don't know. Okay. You can't know if God exists.
Do you have reasons for God existing, or do you just believe for no reason?
I believe because I don't know.
Okay, well then I would say that's just irrational, right? Believing in because you don't know, it's fallacious reasoning.
Oh crap, did we kick the last guy?
Yeah, I wanted a different guest.
All right, take a breath, brother. All right, so I got a good understanding of what you believed last time. First of all, I don't believe that the universe is infinite. I believe in the Big Bang Theory. As far as we know, that's the universe is expanding. That means it is expanding from something, from a single point.
No, okay. That's not true at all. That's false. The Big Bang could be true, yet the universe still be infinite. And the Big Bang did not happen at a certain point, and then everything expanded from that point. The Big Bang happened everywhere, at all points, including where you're standing.
Can you give try to explain that so I can visualize it, if you can, if you will. I understand what you're saying, but that's not...
The Big Bang just refers to the expansion of space-time, and it's happening at all points. It's not like an explosion where you have one little thing and then everything from that point comes out. No.
Well, that's...
Think of space and time as a fabric, and it's stretching. Mm-hmm. That's the only way you can conceptualize it.
Sure. That's exactly how mainstream science explains it. And I get what you're explaining, but it still would have started from a point. right? Maybe not a point that we can make, but
No, there's no necessity for it coming from a single point. Now, there are certain models in which there is a point of a quantum fluctuation, right? And there are different domains in which there are other universes emerging, but there doesn't have to be a single point where everything comes from.
yeah, that's theoretical. The domain where other universes could exist, what you just said. So is most things. So the point is, where I was going with that is causation, right? I do not believe in man in the sky, right? I do not believe in that version of the God, right? There's no bearded man. There's no the God of Abraham or Vishnu or whoever. I do believe is imaginative. I think humans created that because we're scared animals and we're scared of everything, including death. And we would like to believe that there's somewhere to go after this. Okay. I don't know if there is. Probably not. I don't know. Who am I to say? What I do believe is there cannot be an infinite number of causes, right? Scientifically, that's what has been explained, and I think that's what I've kind of clung to, right? Meaning you can't go back an infinite number of times in causality. There has to be one uncaused cause. Whatever that one uncaused cause is for our universe, that is what I would call God. Whether that's a banana, flying spaghetti monster, a speck of dust, that speck of dust would, for all intents and purposes, that would be God.
Okay, well, I think everything you just said is false. There surely can be an infinite causal regress. However, it depends on what form of causation you mean, right? When you say cause, you mean like movement or motion? Like, me kicking a thing is a cause, right?
Right, exactly. Energy coming together,
Yeah.
planets being created, etc.
So the thing about that is that the relativity, Einstein painted a different picture of the universe in which motion isn't real. Motion's relative, not absolute. And so when we observe motion, we're not really observing absolute motion. We're perceiving things happening. However, the totality of the universe, four-dimensionally, can be unchanging, can be just a static block in which there is no real change happening. It's just all perceptual. So in that view, there doesn't have to be a first cause, like a domino effect of, the first domino mover and everything else falls. Einstein painted a very different picture of the universe, in which that doesn't make any sense anymore.
So and then what?
So you don't need God to be a first causer or first mover.
Okay. Well, if no God, then what? That's the question, right?
Yeah, it is a good question. What is this universe all about? And we don't know. We're attempting to find the answer to this. But just because we don't know, or there are gaps in our knowledge, it doesn't mean that you can squeeze God into the gaps and say, well, that's what explains it, God. When you don't even know what God is, you can't define God properly. Nobody can. It's ill-defined.
I think you would define God as the creator based on our human brain.
What's a creator?
Right? You wouldn't know, right?
What's a creator? What's a creator?
That'd be like Harry Potter trying to explain J.K. Rowling to someone in the Harry Potter franchise. He doesn't know. He's in the book, right? He's not outside the book. You have a very human brain. We perceive things how we perceive them through our perceptions, right? Through our body, through our neurology, through our systems. And I don't think that we can understand something like that.
So then you're just conceding that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Oh, God is too much for our brains. Then how can you claim that you know what God is all about? You can't.
You can't claim to know what the universe is all about.
Sure we can, because we have
No,
science.
we absolutely cannot.
Hold on. Science is our best attempt at poking at the universe, investigating it, and seeing what happens. That's what science is all about. What you're doing is looking at the world going, I don't know. Therefore, there's a magic creator, for which you don't know what creation means, ex nihilo, ex materia. What do you mean by creation? How does God create something? Is it from nothing? Is it from some other pre-existing material? We don't know what you're talking about. And so, no, we can investigate the world to an extent, and from what we have observed, there is no God. There's no God or creator that we've seen. I'm looking for evidence of that, sir.
Sorry, say that again.
Do you have any actual evidence that God
I
exists?
didn't realize you turned my mic off. No, actually, good debate though.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your honesty. All right, let's get the next guest.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great.
So, I mean, you're just denying your eyes now because the president literally posted Jesus Christ.
He did?
And like, why are you denying that?
No, it was
your
a
own
doctor.
eyes.
It was a doctor. No, that was a doctor.
Oh, well, yeah. And the Artemis, you think that's real too, probably. I mean, did you see it curve so they didn't hit the firmament?
Yeah,
You're denying evidence with your own eyes.
Not that the curve is required to leave the Earth's gravitational pull. No, it's because there's a firmament.
Oh, well, have you ever seen
In fact,
a tree?
If you were to go straight up with a rocket ship, you would actually fall back down. You have to curve because to reach escape velocity, you have to do that. If you were to go straight up, you couldn't do that with current day rockets.
Yeah, but have you ever seen a tree? Like, it requires a creator.
Right, and who created the tree creator?
The creator did that.
The super tree creator. Anyway, yeah.
I love you, Mike.
Thanks.
Yo, what's up?
Hey, what do you got for us?
So you're an atheist, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you explain how the universe was created? Like, you're saying God is imaginary, and like, I don't know the exact details of the Big Bang, but how can the universe come from nothing? Because something had to create it.
Well, the universe does not need to be created.
So do you think it's eternal?
It very well could be eternal. We don't know. But surely the universe can come from empty space. We now know that there's vacuum energy. If you take a pocket of empty space, you take away the air, take away whatever is in there, there's still energy fluctuating. It's called vacuum energy. And so this exists at all space. And we know that sometimes there could be random fluctuations that contain energy that yield universes because that potential energy is converted into kinetic. And so the point is that you can't get universes from empty space. It can happen all the time, according to some quantum. And so you don't need God for that. All you need is a quantum fluctuation. And so whether or not the universe was created or wasn't created, you don't need God.
So you said that, like, you were saying that universes can create themselves, like you said, like recently or something, right?
It's not that themselves.
Like what you're saying before.
That there is a environment that exists that fosters the production of universes because of the nature of the universe.
So that can only happen because of the universe existing already, right?
The totality of all things that exists eternally. However, there could be pocket universes, correct. The Big Bang was a pocket universe emerging. The point is, we don't know for sure. None of the answers require a God, though. That's the point.
But that can't happen because there's where does the energy come from the very first time? Because now we have the universe, that can happen with the energy in the universe, pocket energy, whatever you were saying. But how did that start the first time? Because there was nothing there in the beginning.
He's always there. It just converts over time. It converts in different ways. In fact, the universe eventually can collapse. Our universe might collapse, and then that energy might go back into this larger space in which the energy is always there again. It could be cyclical, right? The universe may be cyclical in that sense.
Also, let me ask you another question. So before you said it could be eternal, right? The universe.
Mm-hmm.
So how come scientists, like people who study evolution, stuff like that, how come they say the universe is 14 billion years?
Yeah, that's a great question. The answer is that 14 billion years is not saying that that's when the absolute beginning. That's just referring to what we observe as the beginning, right? What we observe is different from what's actually there, because there are limits to what we can see because of light has a finite speed. And so when we say 14 billion years ago, all we're saying is that that's the last thing we can see. That's as far back as we can see in the universe's history. There may be a way further back history in the universe that we don't know about. It's just that we don't have access to that.
All right, let me ask you another question. So you believe the speed of light, the speed of sound, gravity, everything, that if they were like 1% different, it could be catastrophic for everyone?
Not at all. In fact, the fine-tuning argument fails in multiple ways. But the biggest reason why is because many of the constants are not that finely tuned. They're, if anything, coarsely tuned. For example, dark energy. It could have been 2 times more intense and we'd still exist. The gravitational constant, the cosmological constant could have been 10 times more intense and we'd still exist. In fact, you can configure a universe that is far more conducive to life, one in which there was more clumping and less dark energy. And so the fine-tuning argument doesn't work, because it's like saying, oh, well, look at the Earth. The Earth is the only place that life exists, but look how far away it is from the sun, 93 million miles away. If it was a mile off, we wouldn't be here. Well, hold on. There's other planets out there around other star systems that are at different distances from their host star, yet they might be more habitable than our Earth.
Yeah, well, that's
because the
because
distance is not the only factor. There's many factors at play here. And it could be the case that just like there are other star systems out there, there may be other universes out there with different constants in which there are way more conducive to life than ours.
the thing with that is each planet, like you were saying, the distance, each planet is made up of different properties. Like Saturn has its rings. Jupiter, I think, is like the biggest planet. So you can't say that like what I'm saying is wrong because just of the distance. Like it has to be everything. Like each planet was designed specifically for one way, so that way every planet in the solar system can function like properly.
Funny how you mentioned Saturn's rings when they are not permanent. Saturn's rings come and go all the time. They're not a necessary property for Saturn. That's exactly my point I'm raising. The universe is constantly changing in the way it's configured. And to say that it's finely tuned for us, I think is absurd when you look at the vastness of space and time and realize that there's other possibilities. There's other star systems, there's other galaxies that may have more life than our galaxy.
All right, I have one last question. So you believe in evolution, right?
Evolution is a fact, yes.
It's a proven fact?
It is a proven, demonstrable, observable fact that we evolve, yes.
So what do you think the odds are that a Big Bang, like when this, whatever the Big Bang is, because I don't know the exact definition, but what are the odds that when that happens, it creates life on Earth that is so, it's so, like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, also it creates all the trees, plants, animals, different species. Each animal has 2 gen, male, female, to reproduce. Every different place on Earth is different.
That's a great question. You're looking at the world in all of its astonishment. The fact that we are alive, the fact that there's a sun that we orbit around. That's remarkable. And you're asking, well, how can a big bang, a big explosion cause all this? Well, that's not what we're saying. The Big Bang did not cause life. The Big Bang is a separate theoretical idea than life. What I'm saying, what science is really actually painting a story of is a cascade of cosmic evolution and biological evolution that follows that, chemical evolution that precedes biological evolution. We're finding a cascade of events going back 14 billion years leading up to us today. And we know to a great extent how life came about through very basic chemical events. Amino acids, they form from methane and other gases in the atmosphere, in the early reductive atmosphere of the Earth. We're performing lots of experiments on nucleotides, and we see them polymerize into RNA spontaneously with the introduction of certain clay phosphates. We have a great understanding of how life emerged, and that fact that we evolved. The fact that there were various human species before us. There were dozens of human species before us. Going back to that, there are different ape species before us. The point is that it's not that there was a bang and then bam, all this happened. There's a cascade of predictable and very, predictable events that happened since the Big Bang. And all this is explained thoroughly through science. None of this requires God to explain.
I just want to say
And
one
it's
last
remarkable,
thing.
and that is remarkable. It's remarkable. I agree with you 100%. I'm astonished at the fact that we're alive. That shakes me to my core. It makes me go, wow, we're alive. But we don't need God for that. Fortunately, we don't need a cosmic puppeteer telling us how and what to do.
I just want to make one final point. So, first, I know the Big Bang is like an expansion of the universe. It's not like an explosion, but I'm pretty sure that happened. Like the speed at which it was expanding was constant. So if that happened and everything evolved, what you're saying to how it is today, how come planets stopped evolving, stars, Earth, everything? How come the human race hasn't kept evolving? Because you're saying the universe is still expanding. So how come right now nothing's changing? If that did happen.
Well, that's a great question. The answer is the expansion of the universe is such a slight force upon us because we exist within a gravitational field within the galaxy. The galaxy has a gravitational field that we exist within. On top of that, we live in the solar system with the sun. We're in the sun's gravitational field. We're bounded by the Earth. And also our cells in our body are tethered by the very fundamental forces in the nuclear forces, the strong and weak nuclear forces. And so all those things supersede, they overcome the expansion force of the universe. And so although the universe is indeed expanding all around us, we exist within a pocket in which we don't experience the expansion because all those other forces overcome the expansion force. And so, however, we're not stopping. The evolution is not stopping in us. We continue to evolve, and just at a slower rate because of modern technology, but we're still evolving.
How does technology affect that?
Great question. Well, for example, 10,000 years ago, we did not have dentistry. We didn't have dentists. And so when people were born with wisdom teeth that literally that grew in their gums the wrong way, and perhaps they got an injury there, they could die from that injury, right? You can get an infection there. And so over time, because our jaws got smaller, the people with those wisdom teeth, they died through natural selection. They tended to die when they had those wisdom teeth. So what we're finding is that people are born with less and less wisdom teeth because of that very reason, right? If you don't have wisdom teeth, you're able to survive better. And so that's the point. Now, dentistry is affecting this because we rip your wisdom teeth out and those people with the wisdom teeth genes still are able to give birth. And so that's how evolution's slowing down, right?
Wait, I just have a question. Like, if you
The
go to the
natural selection
dentist,
is not as much of a force on us as it was 10,000 years ago.
I just want to go back what you said. So you said that less people have wisdom teeth because of all the dentistry in the past, but that doesn't change their genetics, because the person that was born with wisdom teeth, if they get it removed, they still have it. They have a kid. That kid will still have it. They get it removed. Everyone can get it removed, but no one.
Exactly. So nature is not selecting us anymore. We are selecting ourselves in a way, right? Because modern medicine, you can get a vaccine and you won't die from the disease. And so your immune system doesn't have to be as strong. Your teeth don't have to be as strong. The point is that nature is not as much of a forcing on us as it was selecting us 10,000 years ago.
I mean, like, I don't really know how to respond to that, like what to say, but I mean, your points are interesting, but
that's perfectly fine. What I would suggest to you, Stephen, is learn. Learn as much as you can about the world. That's going to be a way better method of having an answer to these questions than just pretending God, right? Learning, delve into science, delve into philosophy, delve into religion, read the Bible, read the Quran.
me personally, I've done all three things.
Read everything you can, and that will inform your worldview way better than coming up here and trying to get a gotcha.
I mean, in my opinion, I've studied all types of sciences and the Renaissance and things like that. And like my understanding is that God exists from everything I've concluded. But like, I mean, those are like, your points are interesting. Like, I hear what you're saying, but like that's just how I work. Like, that's what I think. So
most people work that way. Look. There are so many advantages, emotional advantages, in believing in God. Everybody, I would love to believe in a being that cares about me, is looking out for me, helps me find the right partner, helps me find the right parking spot, helps me find everything I need in this world. It would be fantastic to have that, and that belief does help people. But the problem is, we're after what's true. And if you're after what's true, you're going to have to dive deeper than just what emotionally feels good, right? You're going to have to go into those uncomfortable territories where the world is ambiguous. It's not as clear as it is when you don't know much about it. And that's the Dunning-Kruger, right? You don't know much about the world, and so your scope of understanding is so limited that you think you know everything. Whereas when you learn more about the world, your scope of understanding increases. Respectively, your scope of what you don't know increases, and that's why that's the conundrum here. That's what comes with knowledge. Humility.
I mean, I think that's subjective. Like, not he's saying you like looking for the truth, but like maybe like the way people go about it. But like one thing I just want to point out, I don't understand how there can be nothing after death, because your soul, like when you're born, like obviously you don't know what like you haven't learned anything yet, like you're born. And the thing is, you're gonna say like, oh, if you don't, there's nothing after death, and there's nothing before you were born. But before you were born, you weren't even created. You don't have a soul. When you die, you still maintain that. Like you can't just, like you can't learn how to do math one day and the next day you just completely forget everything. It's like your soul stays forever. Like your body decays, but not your soul.
Well, the soul is, in Latin, it means the breath of life. And the reason why people believe in the soul is because they think there's something inside of us making us animated, right? Versus a rock. A rock is just a static thing. It's not animated. And so ancient people looked at that and said, oh, wow, well, we must be animated. What's causing us to be animated? It's the soul. And it must be immaterial. It must be something that we can't see or touch, but it's there, right? The problem is, now we have learned since then. We've learned that what's animating you are the biochemical processes of life, right? Reproduction, metabolism. In your body, there are trillions of cells continuously performing chemical reactions in a micro scale. That's what's giving your sense of life. There is no evidence of a soul. So when you die, there's no evidence that you are in some way still alive. All the evidence suggests that when you die, all of your bodily functions cease and you just rot away. And look, that's scary. At first it's very scary to come to grips with that. That when you die, nothing happens. You just stop. But in my eyes, I don't have any existential crises thinking about this, because to me, instead of hoping and wishing that one day you'll be alive, I put my focus on the life I have now, the only life I know I have. And so my goal is to make my life better every day, instead of hoping and wishing and praying that maybe one day I'll have another life. And so that flips the whole paradigm. Instead of focusing on the afterlife, which is what so many religious people do, our life. And it makes my life be better. And if we get an afterlife someday, great. But I know that this life is precious because it's fragile, because it's finite, because we only know we get one so far. And so that's why I think life is the most precious thing. That's why I put my focus on it.
Before you said that, when you die, all our like organs and everything like shut down, obviously, because we die. But if you get like an injury, like a brain injury or something like that, your mind's like the way you think, like your thoughts, your mind doesn't get affected at all. You could get shot in the brain and survive, and your mind isn't affected at all. So when you die, your brain decays, your body decays, your mind won't be affected because it's not a physical thing. And the way people think of like an afterlife is like a physical place. Like a physical place, you're like, I'm aware, I'm alive. But the thing is, like, for example, in the Bible, it's like a spiritual place. And it's your mind, it's your soul is in your mind. Because that's where your conscience is, that's where your feelings are, your thoughts. And in the afterlife, your mind, your soul stays because you learned everything through life. And even if something happens to you and you die and all your body organs decay, your mind can't go anywhere because that's not something that you can put like a timeline on.
But how about the cases where people's minds are altered in many accidents? How do you explain that? How do you explain the fact that
trauma?
people come out of car accidents and come out of that accident with a different kind of personality?
Because they got a brain injury.
When people develop brain tumors, they have different personalities and different behaviors coming out of that. How do you explain that?
That's not this thing. Like for example, with a brain tumor, it'll change the way you act. Like that's kind of something like altering your brain, like the way your brain works. But in your mind, you can still think. For example, if you're paralyzed from like the neck down, you can't like walk or something. But in your mind, you can still think like, oh, I used to walk. Like this is how you walk. Like you take steps. Like your mind.
The reason for that, the reason why the brain is more stable is because it's locked into a skull, and your memories and thoughts are stored in configurations of neurons, which are lifetime cells. They don't decay quickly. And so that's why your general mind is preserved for your entire life. But we still know that it decays through time. We still know that it's vulnerable to accidents and brain injuries. And so it's not this impervious thing that you're describing. It's far more transient than what you're describing.
Let me give an example. Like if someone takes like a psychedelic or something, their mind alters, but that's not affecting how their mind works forever. That's only like a temporary thing. When you get injured somewhere, like let's say you break your arm, it doesn't stay broken forever. You can still fix it. So if people like get a brain tumor, for example, they get it cured, then their mind goes back to the way it was.
There are people with permanent brain diseases that render them incapacitated, rendered them disabled for their entire lives.
But their mind never
Mentally,
changes. The way they
their
act can
mind does
change. Their
change.
minds will never change.
Their mind does change. We can measure the brain activity in somebody who has been knocked out. We know it changes. We can study Alzheimer's and depression. We can see the shrinkage of the brain. We can see how the brain activity decreases and
The
changes over
brain
time.
activity, but not your soul, like your mind.
But what's your evidence
Because your
for
brain
the
controls what
soul?
you
What's
do,
your
but your
evidence
mind
for the
is.
soul, though? You have to show the evidence for the soul.
Okay, so I don't know how to put it into words. You
Okay.
can
Well, I'll bring up the next guest then. I keep thinking about it, and I appreciate you being here. But I'll bring in one more guest here because I'm getting tired. Yeah, I can't stand when people have the same person for like 3 hours on the live. I don't like that. I like switching it up and. What's happening? Why isn't people coming up?
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So I just have honestly one question. So from what I understand, before the universe or before the Big Bang, because I feel like that's pretty widely agreed upon as a theory, as like a with factual like evidence behind it, is that the Big Bang is what caused the universe. And it's expanding still. But I feel like what I've looked into is that there was nothing before the Big Bang, right? So am I wrong about that? Or
Well, we don't know if there is a before the Big Bang. There may be a before. There may not be.
gotcha.
But I don't see how this at all lends credence towards God existing. Whether the answer is or it is not.
Well, yeah, that's what I was just wondering. So if there was nothing before the Big Bang, how does where does everything come from? You know what I'm saying? That's my question. I understand that there's not an answer for that, but it's like if there's no answer for that, then
So when you invoke the word nothing, that's a
gotcha.
philosophical. It's a philosophical idea. There are different theories of what nothing is. Some people think it's a lack of something. But when you think of a lack of something, you're still thinking of something bounded, right? If I think about my closet and there's clothes in my closet, but then I think of the lack of clothes in my closet. Well, I'm still thinking of a closet. I'm still thinking of something. So, to me, in my eyes, even the idea of nothing may not be actually valid. It might not actually be a real thing you can conceive of, because every time you try to conceive of it, you're conceiving of something. It's a circular thing. The point is that I don't think true nothingness really exists.
Gotcha.
However, empty space can give rise to universes. Why? Because in empty space, there's vacuum energy. Even without any matter, there's still energy in empty space.
Oh, I didn't know that.
These
That's
are-
interesting.
yeah, it's quantum energy, vacuum energy, and it fluctuates. And so randomly, these fluctuations, which hold energy in potential form, they can fluctuate and yield entire universes like ours. And that's how you can get something from empty space. Now, this vacuum energy is something not theoretical. It's something we observe. It's a real phenomenon. We can observe vacuum energy by performing the Casimir effect. We take two metal pieces. We observe the energy before and after. We see that there's still something there. even within a vacuum of space, there's still energy that pries those two plates together. And so the point is that you can get a universe from empty space, but not necessarily nothing.
Okay, gotcha. Well, honestly, that was just my only point. Then I'll go ahead and let the next person come up here.
All right. How can something empty create something? Well, again, when we say empty, we're talking about energy. There's still energy in empty space. That's the point. This is not just a theory. This is real. This is something we observe. It's called vacuum energy. We observe it. It's fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating. And that's why we have to be a bit philosophical about what we mean by nothing or something coming from nothing. Michael says, why are we the only planet to have life? Well, that's a great question. Maybe we're not the only planet with life, right? Who said we are? Who said? Did you know that Mars has water? It's ice, but it has water. There may have been life on Mars billions of years ago. And we actually have found recent evidence of this in rocks. There's certain minerals that we only know life on Earth can produce, and we see them on Mars. That's a sign of life perhaps being on Mars. Or how about Enceladus? There's liquid oceans under the ice on Enceladus, in which we know all the building blocks of life are there. There may be alien fish species swimming in the waters of Enceladus. There may be life everywhere in the universe. It's just that we don't have access to it. We don't have the technology yet to go there and see for sure. But even if there was lots of life in the universe, that wouldn't debunk God, right? Let's say we're the only life, or let's say there's lots of life. Whatever the answer is, God may still exist, right? And so the amount of life does not change that. But it's a good question. Is love just our chemicals? Yeah, it seems to be that when we say I love you, or when we say there is somebody who loves someone else, all we're really referring to are those biochemical processes in the brain and the nervous system. That's what's yielding our experiences. And people tend to romanticize love as if it's something magical that cannot be explained by naturalism. And intuitively, I understand where you're coming from, right? And it seems that love is such a unique, amazing experience, and it is. The fact that it's chemical-based does not take away from its beauty. The fact that we are chemicals in motion, or molecules in motion, that doesn't take away from the beauty of life or love. No matter the medium in which we exist, whether it's chemicals or God dust or whatever, right? Spirits, whatever, it doesn't change how magical and how amazing love is. And so, don't fall for that trap where people, you think we're just chemicals? Well, yeah, that doesn't change the beauty, how beautiful life is. All right, I'm trying to get someone in here, but I don't know why nobody's coming up. Have you ever met two believers whose idea of God are the same? Yes. I mean, surely there are lots of nuances within theism, and there are almost no two identical worldviews. But generally, yeah, people have some of the same beliefs. Without hormones and cells traveling through our bodies, we wouldn't survive. yeah, life is fascinating. The way that our bodies operate is just fascinating. It's just absolutely incredible. And the fact that it's natural makes it even more amazing, because all of that happened naturally. It doesn't need somebody meddling in to make us talk or make us do things. It's all just a natural process. That's just even more amazing.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
So I guess the reason why I believe in God is because without God, how can you really explain consciousness?
Yeah, great question. So in my view, consciousness is just a bioelectrical process in the body, and our experiences are like when people invoke the the qualia, right? Well, what is qualia? We know that, sure, that maybe the brain can experience the brain can give rise to consciousness, but what is experience itself? Well, what's that coming from? When I experience the color red, where is that coming from? And to me, as an identity theorist, I think that the electrical processes in the brain is experience. That is what experience is. They're the same thing. They're identical. And so literally consciousness is the process, electrical process happening in our bodies. That's my view.
Well, I guess what I would say to that is I could stare at a neuron or a neural system and I could look at it for all I want, study it all I can, know everything about it, but that wouldn't entail the experience of red or what it's like.
Well, who said it comes from a neuron, right? Just like life does not come from a single atom or molecule. DNA is not a living thing. DNA is a molecule of life, but it's not itself a living thing. A strand of DNA is not alive. Life is not an object, it's a process. And so just like consciousness is not in a neuron, you can't find consciousness in a neuron, just like you can't find life in a DNA molecule. However, it's the interactions, the very intricate interactions between these systems, these neural systems, or in the case of life, biochemical systems, that give rise to these emergent phenomenon that we call consciousness. And so that's the difference.
Well, sorry, maybe I didn't articulate myself better. I'm saying if you knew everything about the nervous system, everything about the brain, everything about neuroscience, still wouldn't entail knowing what it's like to see the color red.
Well, who said that can't be the case? Why couldn't we devise some kind of biological law one day in the future in which you can computationally discover everything you need and find out everything you need to know that this is an experience of red or this is an experience of this thing, right? Who said? Maybe our mathematics isn't quite there yet. Maybe our technology just isn't there yet. Who says that it's impossible for this to happen?
Are you aware of the Mary's room thought experiment?
Yes.
So she clearly learned something new.
I don't think so. So the Frank Jackson, the person who actually devised the knowledge argument, it's actually called the knowledge argument. And the person who devised this actually doesn't agree with it anymore. He understood. So representationalism is the view that kind of debunks this. So Mary's room says, well, Mary might know everything about colors. She might know everything about colors, but she lives in a black and white room and she's never seen the color red. But when she comes out of the room, she discovers what it's like to see red. And so she's learning something new that the physical facts could not derive. The problem is that she didn't really discover anything new about red. She just gained a new ability of seeing red. She didn't learn anything new about the physical facts of red. She just gained a new ability about how red is represented. That's the point that kind of puts a hole in this knowledge argument. Just like, for example, if I knew everything about a cube, right? I knew it's all the sides it has, and mathematical. but I never saw a cube in real life, right? The first time I saw a cube, would I therefore learn something new about the cube? No, I wouldn't learn anything new about the cube. I would just be gaining a new ability to see the cube. And so, no, Mary does not gain new knowledge about red or colors when she sees it for the first time. She's just simply gaining a new ability.
So you're saying the seeing red is a disposition, or the ability to recognize red?
The ability to see red is all that she's gaining. She's not learning anything new. She's not learning anything new about the ontology of color.
Okay, I guess that's a fair response. I guess I'll throw out the reductive argument. How can you possibly hold that consciousness is identical to bioelectricity when you haven't even formulated it down to physical language?
Why do we need to reduce everything to language to know that this thing exists? Why do you think we have to have a formula for love to know what love is?
No, you need a strong. You just need a strong inductive case.
Yeah. So we can make an inductive case that when we observe electrical processes in the brain, that is consciousness. We can induce that.
So does that mean that when you damage a radio, you damage the music that's coming from the radio?
No, that doesn't mean that that's the case. But the point is that analogy doesn't quite work. See, in the case of consciousness, there are people say, "Oh, well, correlation isn't causation." Yeah, I agree. Not all the time. However, there is a caveat here. Enough correlative data. If you have so much, if every time I smack my head in the face and it hurts, and I do this to you and this to everybody, and this happens every single time, well, that's a good case. And this is consistently happening throughout history, right? This is a great case that, yeah, smacking your face in the head gives you pain, right? Nobody would say, "Oh, well, correlation isn't causation, Mike." And so they would smack themselves in the face and go, "Oh, see, that doesn't mean anything." No, that's absurd. Enough correlative data makes the case, right? If it's consistent enough, if it is persistent, that's a good case that, yeah, when we observe electricity in the brain and we see respective physical reactions, well, that's a good case that, yeah, that electricity is what is happening in the brain. And there's no need, if you think about it, there's no need to invoke any other theory of the mind, idealism or dualism. It's not. There's no theoretical virtue in resorting to those views over, my view, or physicalism. There's just no theoretical virtue in doing that.
But listen, you're making an identity claim, right? All identity claims have had successful reductions. Water to H2O is an example. You cannot make an identity claim without a scientific explanation, or else you get a bunch of absurdities, right? That's like saying, "Oh, the moon and tide are strongly correlated, therefore they must be identical."
No, there's a difference here. Clearly, when we say I'm conscious, we're describing a different type of physical phenomenon than just two other objects, like the moon and the earth, right? We're talking about a very personal experience, and it's a very complex experience. It's not as simple as plugging in some mathematics like we do with Newtonian mechanics and discover it, and we can triangulate the trajectory or predict the trajectory of the Artemis 2 rockets. That's not the same thing. It's a far more complicated reaction, right? Consciousness, love, for example, as well. We don't have a mathematical or physical formula for love, but nobody would doubt that love. Nobody would say that love is everywhere, or that love is therefore needs to be immaterial. That's not a good argument, right? Just because we cannot describe something in mathematical language or physics language does not mean that we can't know its ontology, right? There's a difference between epistemic an ontological knowledge, right? I may not have a full epistemic access to something, but I can still have ontological access to it.
So let me try to fortify my point. Is it conceivable to you that I am a zombie?
Logically or metaphysically?
Logically.
Sure.
Therefore, your identity claim is false because it must be true in all possible worlds.
But I don't think, hold on there. I don't think that P zombies are metaphysically possible. See, there's a difference between logical possibilities and metaphysical possibilities. And philosophical zombies are not metaphysically possible in my view. Because there wouldn't be a difference. If we observed a zombie who had the same exact behaviors as me, who had the same exact mental activity as me, it would be conscious. It wouldn't be a zombie with no consciousness. It's just not metaphysically possible in my view. And so, although it's logically possible, it's not metaphysically possible.
But you see, the zombie experiment is supposed to make one point. It shows that, is it conceivable to you that you can feel pain without a body?
Well, you can feel pain without a structured body, but in order to feel pain, as we know it, you need, obviously you need some nervous system. You need some nerves and neurons.
Is it conceivable that you could still feel a pain without needing a body? Logically.
Well, look, what kind of body are you talking about?
Your physical body.
Well, that could be all kinds of configurations. My body can be configured in many different ways than it is now, and I'd still feel pain.
Okay, I guess I'll accept your point on the metaphysical possibility for now, but my last point I want to make is how ill-defined the term physical is. You don't even have a clear definition of what physical means, so how could you possibly hold to physicalism?
When I say physical, I mean things that can be described through physics. That's all I mean. That's all I'm talking about.
Okay, well, here's the dilemma. This is called Hempel's dilemma, right? If you define physics based on current physics, it's probably wrong because science evolves. But if you define it as future physics, that becomes unclear and undefined. So therefore, the definition is flawed.
Not at all. No, just because... Who said that just because we have modern understanding that therefore it's going to be false in the future? No, not at all. Even Newton, that's not how science works actually either. In fact, people think Newton was wrong about physics because Einstein replaced it. But no, not necessarily. Newton's laws of motion are still valid. We still use them. It's just the scope in which we use them is more limited today. And, relativity fills in the gaps for the most part. And quantum mechanics is also needed. But that's the difference. The point is that, no, what we understand today in physics, especially if they are laws, they will always be valid. And no matter how we evolve in the future, right? Newton will be correct in a scope, in a narrow scope, always, no matter how we evolve in the future.
Does physics not change over time?
Of course, our understanding changes over time. Absolutely.
So the definition keeps shifting.
No, the definition will just because our physical understanding changes does not mean that what physics means changes.
Are you saying it's like a working hypothesis? Is that what you're trying to say?
What are you talking about?
A working meaning that you're saying whatever the correct science turns out to be, the mind will be explained by it. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, what I'm saying is physics is just a way in which we describe what we observe empirically. It's just a way of describing the physical phenomenon we observe in the universe. That will always be the case. That's the definition of physics. And my view is that consciousness is purely physical, and we may not have a purely physical description of it today, but perhaps in the future we will one day. Just like there was all kinds of things we didn't know 50 years ago. We couldn't calculate it, but now we can. So, for example, life, right? We didn't know what life was chemically, but now we have a chemical formula for life. That doesn't mean that life must be non-physical and we don't know how to categorize it mathematically. So consciousness can surely be physical. There's no contradiction in that view. There's no contradiction in physicalism.
Listen, you can't. This is the problem with appealing to physicalism or physics. You can't even define what an electron is.
So you think physicalism hinges upon electrons? No. Or how we know what electrons are? No. If physicalism does not hinge upon a single definition of what electrons are.
So can you define what an electron is for me?
It's just a state of energy, state of matter.
Okay, but what is it in and of itself? You're just describing it's in terms of relationship. What is the thing itself?
What is the thing itself? It's a state of matter. It's a state of energy.
Is it a charge? Is it interaction? Is it probability?
Yeah, we can say it's a property. It has properties, right? It has charge. It has these things.
But notice how this is structural or relational information. It doesn't tell you what it is in and of itself.
What are you talking about? So we can describe electrons. That will inform what we think electrons are. If you're asking me, well, what is the true nature of electrons? What's the true nature of physical stuff? That I don't think we have epistemic access to. But that doesn't change the fact that physicalism could still be true. Again, just because we don't have epistemic access to what electrons are, just because we don't have ontological access to what electrons are in terms of what it is, doesn't mean that it can't be physical.
Listen, this is the absurdity of your view. You have to hold now, because clearly you understand now. Clearly you're very humble when you said that. Now you must hold that an electron, matter in and of itself, has to be experiential. And when you hold that, now we can see why this non-experiential stuff leads to the emergence of experiential stuff, which is the mind.
Why does matter have to be experiential? What?
This would help explain why. First of all, it not only does it explain what the hidden intrinsic thing in and of itself is, but it also explains why we get experiential matter from non-experiential matter.
I don't believe that there's such a thing as experiential matter. That doesn't exist in my view. Matter isn't experiential, right? Experience is an emerging phenomenon. It's not just like life is emergent. There's no living matter. It doesn't exist.
So how do you explain, again, where is the cutoff for when consciousness exists? You can't explain that.
What cutoff in what regard? What are you talking about?
Listen, we know consciousness is real because we experience this directly, correct?
Yes.
So the question becomes, how does consciousness arise from non-conscious stuff?
So consciousness is a process which requires a certain type of brain, right? It requires a certain type of neural network. And just because we don't have the exact cutoff, which I don't think there even is, it doesn't mean that it can't be understood through physicalism. We can just generalize it and say, well, yeah, you need a specific type of neural network with a certain number of neurons, and if you have a certain number of these neurons, then you're in a particular body type or nervous system, you're going to get consciousness. We can say that. We can generalize it, and it would be just fine.
Listen, I'm glad you admitted that before, that physics only gives you structure, not essence. I'm very happy with that. This is why you must hold to panpsychism, because quantum mechanics tells us how electrons behave, how they interact, but not what an electron is in itself. You have failed to answer this.
That doesn't. Okay. You want to say panpsychism is necessary. Well, then, what is consciousness? What is consciousness under panpsychism?
It's the fundamental level of all matter. It's what matter
The
fundamentally
fundamental.
is.
What's that? What is that?
It just is consciousness.
it just is. Well, then I could say physicalism just is. Consciousness just is physical stuff.
Nope.
I can do the same move you're making. Panpsychism does not solve the very problem you're raising. It doesn't solve anything. There's no theoretical virtue in subscribing to it.
Your view doesn't solve anything because you just label things as emergence, but you can't explain the emergence. There's
You
no
label
mechanism.
things as experiential. Look, all we have are labels, sir. We don't have another option. All we have in philosophy is labels, right? That's how we form all of logic. There's nothing wrong with labeling things. And just because we don't exactly have a complete ontological understanding of electrons does not invalidate physicalism. It definitely doesn't lend credence towards panpsychism or dualism.
What's the problem with panpsychism? Like, surely you see how it solves the hard problem of consciousness.
So does physicalism solve the hard problem.
No. You
In
just
fact,
label it.
David Chalmers, in his paper, agrees with me that
No, he doesn't.
it's called type. Wait,
He's a property dualist.
do you? No, he gave certain types of solutions. One of them was a type B physicalist. Do you not know this?
I am aware, but he does not
Okay,
like.
so do you agree that David Chalmers, in his paper, gave a physicalist solution to the hard problem?
That has not been solved yet.
So what is type B physicalism?
It's a identity theory. You say that zombies are conceivable, but they're not metaphysically possible.
And does David Chalmers agree that this is a solution to the hard problem?
Something can be a solution, but not be the correct solution.
There you go. There you go. So type B physicalism is indeed a solution to the hard problem. You just conceded, and so yeah, you're raising a moot point here, right? Oh well, it has to be panpsychism because you incredulously don't understand how we can formulate consciousness. That's just an argument from ignorance.
So let me tell you why type B physicalism is absurd. Okay. Do you think if we had an android that instantiated the same physical processes that your brain has, will that AI be conscious even if it's not bioelectric?
If it had the same processes,
Same processes, same type of physical processes, it just wasn't bioelectric.
I don't know if it would give rise to consciousness in the way that we know it.
That's the problem with your view.
No, that's functionalism, which I don't necessarily agree with.
Nope. Functionalism
Yes, it is.
behavior and input, not processes. You hold a process.
Which is processes that behave a certain ways, right? The point is that this is irrelevant to my view. Just because consciousness may not arise, even though the function is the same, the material might be different, right? That doesn't invalidate the fact that consciousness may be electrical, because life, right? Like the same applies to life, right? If we had life function the same way, but it was made of wood, it wouldn't really. I don't think it would really be metaphysically possible for that to even happen. The same with consciousness. It might not be metaphysically possible for you to arrange wood in the way that you would arrange neurons and yield consciousness. I don't think that's metaphysically possible. So this isn't the move you think it is.
It is the move, but whatever. I'm gonna go back to my emergence point then, since you're not being honest with that. Emergence doesn't explain anything; it just labels the problem. Okay, my view, I can grant, sure, is weird, fine, but at least it explains how consciousness exists.
Oh,
Yours
okay.
avoids
Go ahead and
weird.
explain to us, how does consciousness exist under panpsychism?
It is fundamental.
Then I could just say physics. Consciousness is physically fundamental.
Consciousness
It's
is physically fun. What does
we
that
just
even
make
mean?
the same.
What
There's
does that
no
even mean?
explanatory advantage in panpsychism. You're not solving anything. You say it's fundamental. I can say it's physically fundamental.
What does that even mean? Physically fundamental.
It's fundamentally physical consciousness.
But here's the thing, though. You hold to emergence. You can't explain how non-experiential matter leads to emergence matter. I'm saying it's all just
I don't
consciousness.
agree. I don't think that experiential matter is a real thing. You are question begging that view. You're question begging the view that there's such a thing as experiential matter. I don't subscribe to that. I don't think matter has life properties or experiential properties. I think matter just has a certain set of properties, but when they are arranged in certain ways and when they operate and when they interact in certain ways, that's when consciousness or life arises.
So what's appealing to your view compared to my view? Why do you hold it?
Parsimonious, it explains everything with the things we already know and understand. We don't have to add a new immaterialness to the universe. We don't have to add a mind to the universe that's somehow grounds everything and somehow yields different experiences. Right? If everything is just all mind, how the fuck do we get different minds within this big old mind? It's far more parsimonious to say, yeah, consciousness, it just happens in our brains. That's why we all have different experiences, and it's physics. That's it.
No, you're strawmanning my view. You're thinking I'm holding idealism. I'm not Alex K. I'm not that guy. Okay, I'm a panpsychist. Let's just knock that down.
Well, you believe that the mind is fundamental, right?
No. All matter is consciousness. All matter is has consciousness in it.
Right.
All matter is conscious.
So you believe that this bottle has consciousness.
Yes. It may not be complex. It may not be.
Okay.
It may not be complex, but it has some level.
That to me seems a bit not just strange, but unintuitive. And
what's the absurdity?
Well, we study the bottle, and it's completely different from what we know of as experience. It's just a metal. It's just aluminum, or steel. There's no way we know of that this bottle can have consciousness. There's no activity mentally happening here. There's nothing.
So this is the confusion that you're having. It's a simpler form of consciousness. It's not the consciousness that I exhibit. It's not the consciousness that you exhibit.
Okay, how do you know that? How did you come to that view?
Because of functionalism, like how we study consciousness.
So how do we study consciousness that gives you the sense that this bottle has it?
Yeah, whether it integrates information, whether it has specific behavior.
What makes you believe that this bottle has consciousness? What facts about the world does that to you?
It has a limited sense of consciousness, and it's because matter is fundamentally experiential.
Yeah, what makes you believe that matter has consciousness?
I agree it's weird, but it's a solution to the hard problem.
I'm asking you, what makes you think that?
Because matter must have some sort of hidden intrinsic essence to it.
That's question begging. I'm asking you, what motivates the view that this bottle or matter in general has some level of consciousness?
Because it's a way to solve the hard problem of consciousness.
So is inventing a bunch of fairies who give us consciousness. That also solves the hard problem. But is it a good solution? No. I don't see how this saying that it's fundamental, although it may solve the fact that we don't know that solve the hard problem, it's not a very good solution. Because, again, it's adding more gobbledygook to your view to the worldview. It's just way more messy. It's unfalsifiable. None of it is, to me, a good solution.
Did you say it doesn't have causal closure? Is that what you
It's unfalsifiable.
unfalsifiable?
How do you falsify the matter having consciousness or not? How do you falsify it for that?
How do you falsify physicalism?
We study the brain.
Well,
Wait. You mean when you say physicalism, you mean my theory of mind, right?
when you say everything is physical, how do you falsify that?
Oh, that's a different level now. Okay. Everything's physical. That's just a descriptive take on reality. Why do I subscribe to it? Because I don't have a reason to think otherwise. There's no good alternative to that. My physicalism is a parsimonious. It explains everything just fine, and that's it.
Well, that was one of my point when I said you can't even define what physical really means.
Physicalism means that the universe, the set of all things, are described or can be described through physics.
Current physics or future physics?
Any physics.
So the correct physics, that turns out to whatever the correct science turns out to be?
I don't know what that even means. The point is that it can be described through physics, right? Physics is a study of things in the universe, right?
Listen, man, this went really bad for you. I think I won, but good luck with emergence. Take care, Mike.
Okay. All right, guys. Just physics. Look at. There are going to be limits to the way we label things in the world, right? We're limited to just labels. Whether you're a panpsychist, whether you're an idealist, whether you're a physicalist, you're going to be limited by labeling. That's all we have. And so to sit there and say, oh, well, you can't define physics. Well, define dualism. Define the immaterial. You can't do that in any better way than I can define physicalism. And so we're all contriving these theories. And I think, though, the reason why physicalism is better is because it's just simpler. It explains everything fine, and it's simpler, and we don't need to add any immaterialness to the world, for which we cannot falsify. So, anyway, I think I'm done here. I'm tired. Yeah, memories are licked in neurons. You're doing disservice to science. What? So, memories come from things called engrams in the brain. Engrams are literally structures of neurons. They're configured in certain ways, and so every time you think of something or recall a thought or memory, you're stimulating those same neurons in that same configuration. That's what a memory is. That's what you think of. When you think of a memory, you're just stimulating those same neurons that have been stimulated in the part of the brain for which you first experienced that thing. So what I'm saying is correct. No, it's not. Okay, then come up and show me incorrect. Show me that it's incorrect. Come on up. I love to hear the evidence that memories don't come from engrams. I love to hear that. We're waiting, Orthodox. We're waiting for you, brother. Why aren't you coming up? Where you at? Where you at, brother? Anybody see him in the comments? Anybody see him in the comment section? Did he vanish? All right, guys. Well, I'm done. I'm tired. So yeah, suddenly he's quiet. Oh, there he is. I wazed for 15 minutes. You're not in the guest box, sir. Come on up. Actually, no. Let's I want to, before I go, I want to talk about the pale blue dot. I think that's a good. I think we need that right now. All right, guys. Let's do a quick closing statement. So, if you look at this is a picture of space, right? And if you look over here, that little dot, if you guys can see it, that tiny little dot right there, that's the Earth. That's our planet. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, every hopeful child, every inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings. How eager they are to kill one another. How fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there's no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. It's up to us. It's been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There's perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Either you're insignificant or very significant. It's how you view it. Well, yeah, look, this people often go, oh, well, look how small we are. That means that we're insignificant. See, well, yeah, but also not really, right? Although we are small, we are connected to the universe in a very deep, big way. We are part of the universe. We're fragments of it. We're stardust. Literally, every atom in your body comes from stars that exploded billions of years ago, and in a cascade of effects gave rise to you. You are part of the universe. You're a fragment of it, experiencing itself. You're part of the universe experiencing itself. That's fascinating. And so in a way, you can find these very deep connections between you, this interconnectedness between you and the nature around you. You and me. Biologically, we're connected, all of us, as human beings. We all share a branch on the tree of life. We all are relatives in a sense, right? If you go far back enough, you find that every human being shares a common ancestor. We're family in a sense. We're connected. And so, in all this vastness, it seems like all we got is each other. And all we really can do is embrace what we have. The very little things we have, we should embrace it more. That's the point here. The point is that what we have is fantastic. It's amazing. We should cherish this dot. Although it's small, it's everything we have. So the point is that, we got to be kinder and more helpful and more patient. This is what this picture motivates and inspires, that urge to be kinder to other people, the urge to be more patient, the urge to be more respectful, because all we have is this dot. So that's a taste of the cosmic perspective. What about after we pass away? Where do we go? That's a very natural question. Well, where do we go when we die? Because you're looking at the world and how vast it is and how finite you are. And you're scared about that. There's something deep down in it. It scares us to think that when we die, we don't go anywhere. That's it. Life stops, right? And so we want to invent an afterlife. But to me, instead of running away from the lack of an afterlife, instead of saying, no, there has to be one, I walk into the fact that we might not have an afterlife. I become comfortable with that. I accept it. I accept we don't have an afterlife necessarily. We don't know. Nobody knows. And so I accept that we might not have one. And in that recognition, in that concession, I recognize more how fragile we are. It becomes more apparent to me how fragile and vulnerable we all are in this life, how fragile life can be. And in that recognition, I value life even more, I value life so much because I recognize how fragile it is in this vastness, instead of covering it up or cloaking it in some kind of afterlife, some kind of a, fluffed up thing that doesn't necessarily exist. I feel I give more value to my life because there's no afterlife. The now life becomes way more important to me, way more precious, in the recognition that it's finite. And so that's my point of view on this. The religious person wants to run away from the fear. Oh my God, we don't have an afterlife. There must be God. But in that running, they what they that my perspective escapes them. They don't have it anymore. It becomes unattainable. They can't see how I see the world, and so they might value life differently than I do. You know, the point is, like, I wonder, what if every person had a cosmic perspective? What if every human being on this planet understood this picture? I think the world would be a different place. I think we'd be living in a better place. If every person, if every politician understood this picture, what it really means, I think we'd be living in a far better world. That's my point here. Because this image, understanding what this image means, really drives the message home that we should take care of our planet. It really drives the message home that we should take care of each other and not be so dogmatic and not be so hateful, not be so harmful, right? You get a far better understanding of it, a far better grasp of that versus a religious point of view. They just simply tell you, yeah, God is real. God is real. Don't worry. Love each other because that's what God does, right? See how great God is? And that's not saying it's possible to be nice as a religious person, but I'm saying that it's a tainted, it's a malnourished view, in my view. And that's all I'm saying. It's a morally malnourished view. You know? And people say, well, atheists can't have morality. There's no morality in atheism. But I think that paired with science literacy, I think that morality can absolutely, a very keen sense of it can emerge without God. And religion is not